I have a few slides to share to kind of provoke and think and hopefully support what I'm thinking. And in everything I'm saying here, the context obviously is that we are extremely, I think, lucky in the UK. We're lucky in Yorkshire, we're lucky in Huddersfield, what we have. We're right now in the most beautiful building. I have the opportunity to share with you my thoughts. It's a fantastic opportunity, surrounded by art and thinkers and doers. And so in that context, fantastic. However, when I start with this, it's an image of the helping hand. I chose this because it's the first one, not because it's any particular. Anyone that looks into things detail, you'll notice that there's a wedding ring there and that actually the two people are white. That's not relevant. It was the first picture I went to. But this is the thing about storytelling. Who gets to tell the story and how's it told? I started with this because it's quite an important part of my world in terms of sharing resources and the quality of our creative ecology. That's what this is about. So, that's the story of the Samaritan. The kind of crux of the story, though, was about the fact that the person who helped this person who'd been attacked, so someone had got attacked, two people walked past them and they were still on the ground. And it was the Samaritan that stopped, picked them up, dusted them down, took them to an inn, spent some money, left them, and then basically supported them. The crux of the story is that there's an enemy, because that Jewish person wouldn't normally be touched by a Samaritan. That was the crux of the story, that an enemy can help you, support you. And that's the whole point of that kind of biblical tale. But the issue I have is the way that stories can be changed. The ways that people can see that in a very different way. And I remember being, can I just ask you to press the button to move it, really quite struck, I think, yeah, struck by this retelling, reinterpretation of this story. No one would remember the Good Samaritan if he'd only had good intentions. He had money too. Now, for those who know me and seen and know my energy, they know that I'm not particularly enamoured with Margaret Thatcher. I was a Thatcher child, the whole milk story. You know, I remember going to the swimming baths and my beloved teacher. And why are we walking to the swimming baths? Because of Mrs. Thatcher. And so from very young, 7 years old, I've had a bit of an issue with Mrs. Thatcher. However, she provoked me to think differently about that story. Because there is actually, I think, a level of truth there. What stories get remembered and how they're told? And is it that actually the Samaritan had the resources to help that person? What resources are we valuing? Is it just the fact that he gave the money to the inn, or was it the fact that he picked him up and actually dusted him down? What are you valuing that? I don't have any answers here. I'm just putting it there as a question in terms of how the story's told, who gets support, how does that, you know, bring back to our art? Okay, moving on to the next slide, if that's okay. I wanted to share how we are currently valuing art in the context of this country. So there's a new thing called the UK Arts Index, and please forgive me if you know this already, I'm just doing a platform. The UK Arts Index is something that all artists are encouraged to use as a lobbying tool. We were told some time ago that actually you need to forget about the things that make you feel, forget about how you change your life, because you can't measure that really. So we need to start measuring the value of your ticket sales. You need to start measuring the key data, your GDP, your gross domestic production, your corporate sponsorship in philanthropy, and also your attendance levels. Now, I'm not completely against that, because I think there's a value there that some people, you have to speak in certain languages, you know, as a counsellor, you have to speak in a certain way with certain people to get what you mean in order to get through, to make them feel anything. So I get that. But what I'm kind of putting here is, how are we measuring, it says here, satisfaction levels. I think that's really interesting. How do you measure satisfaction? And in terms of the evaluation, I think that's extraordinary. From my own personal journey, I'm standing here today because of arts. Because at 7, a theatre company came to my school and moved me, and from then on I've joined the circus. That was it. So I know, in terms of my own value experience, that there's been a long-term gain because of art. That's why I do what I do. But it also means that I have to bank that, other than just the corporate and the finance. I'm kind of challenging companies, organisations, individuals to bank that. How do we bank that really difficult thing to take, you know, that movement. So I've decided for me personally that I will seek out those individual organisations. It happened for me last week. It was extraordinary. There's the artistic director of Greenwich Festival, just happened to be there at the conference. I didn't connect, I'm from Greenwich, and he showed this film about the festival and it resonated with me. I thought, oh, I remember, I was there, I was moved. That's the first time I saw a piece of, I've got to go and tell that man. Actually what I did is I said, listen, you made a difference to my world. And I just have challenged them now to hold that bank, whether it's on an archive, on the website, wherever it is. So they have now that story to tell. That one story, 2, 3, I'm sure there's lots of people who moved, were there just like we are in Kirklees with our heads up in the sky looking at the magic. There's a 5-year-old there in 25 years time will be, I remember that's when it happened for me. And how do you bank that? So that's, I don't want either or either, I want as well, in terms of how we value what's next. Okay, moving on, because I really don't want to waste up too much time. I want to be able to explore. This I wanted to share. From last March, this is why we're kind of here, that, you know, we're so lucky in Kirklees that they kind of challenged us to think. Arts Council have, you know, this is it. We're in this country and Arts Council value who's important in terms of creativity, music, dance, you know, visual arts, image, all these, you know, there's a list of things, and they have 695 national portfolio organisations in this country. They have decided that they are the ones who will share to the audiences. Now we know the 695 are the pinnacle, but there's a number of other people not on that list who are making work. The schools, the organisations, the amateur groups, all kinds of people making that aren't on that list. Breaking it down from the 695, Yorkshire has around 196. Now I may be a little wrong on those figures, but they do. That's kind of what they have. When you go down to Kirklees, I had a figure of 6, but Adele said 8. So whatever. Let's just, you know, split difference. 8. That's fine. We have 8. That's great. That's wonderful. 8 organisations that are valued. Within Yorkshire, we have, when I read this, the biggest amount of, in terms of revenue, resources, when I say revenue, money, because there's more, resources are more than money, but in terms of the actual account, you know, money, then Opera North are way up there, you know, they're in 10 million. And the one that's at the bottom is about 53,000. That's a massive difference. And I suppose what I'm not saying either or either. Again, I'm not arguing that they should have less or this and that. That's what they have. Historically, I think we should know the context of what we're working with. It's how you use those resources. So, for example, you can see that there's a little spread on the table. I placed that there. There's a reason why I placed that there. I think people learn visually and music and also through, you know, just food. I think that's really important to bring onto the table. So there are some people in this region who have got the whole plate. They've got, you know, the soya. Sorry, I'm back in there. They've got the whole scone. That's what I call it. I know scone. They've got the scone. They've got the butter. It's Lurpak. Lighter, it's then you've got the jam, and you know, some people have got the cream too. All right, so we know that's the big picture, and they have worked hard to get that. They have built up their companies, and that's fine. There are some people, as we know, that haven't even got to the table. They're actually underneath the table, the crumbs are falling, and they're just lucky to get anything they can, in fact using their own resources at home and all those things. We know this is true. What I'm wondering is how those two can connect, especially when you talk about community work and engagement and education, and the bolt-on, where these people on the table are actually naturally doing that every day, and these people on the top who've got all the money, you know, have a bolt-on. That's a stereotype, but how do you connect those two? And how do you, basically, I've got a bit of a challenge, yeah, the 1%. How do you share the resource of 1%? I've shared the resource of my 1% today. I've been invited to be here as an artist. I have, you know, an invoice of such, and so 1% of that is now on the table for you to share, because I think that's where you start, from yourself. Okay, moving on from this one, I think the last one, because I don't want to take too much time. Absolutely resonates with me this. When I listened to Professor Robinson talk about his work and just sharing other people's energies and stories. I sat next to Robin, poor Robin. The emotion is there. It's just there. I know I'm so connected to when I was 7 and how I just needed to tell that story. Now that's not instead of other people, it's as beside them as well. It's so important. And so those 6 or 8 Kirklees companies, you know, we are lucky in this region, in this area, to have, you know, disability arts that are absolutely respected and pushed through. You know, we have South Asian arts that are very strong. There's still lots of voices and places that are not being told. What must that feel like if you're under that table feeling hungry and actually wondering how you're going to get to it? It's an absolute unbearable pain, and it's unnecessary. I do believe that every organisation, every individual within this ecology has a responsibility to each other and to connect better. Otherwise, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. That's it. That's all I have to say. And I'm really looking forward to sharing what you have to say about that. Thank you for listening.